with aging, sprinting is one of those things. If you don't keep it up, if you don't keep, ballistic capacity up in your tendons will get fragile and you won't be able to. And then your chances of ruptures go up. And then you ever notice when you look at somebody moving around and somebody looks old versus somebody who looks youthful?
Yeah.
It's more about like their bounce. And
welcome to Health Decoded, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
Hey, Health Decoded listeners, Dr. Alessi here. Let me ask you a serious question. Are you tired of waiting until something goes wrong to finally see a doctor? At Alessi Functional Health, we take a different approach, the right approach. We believe true healthcare isn't about chasing symptoms. It's about preventing them in the first place. That's why we created the Alessi Total Care Program. This is a functional medicine-based membership that gives you proactive, personalized care year-round. You'll get access to comprehensive blood work and functional testing, custom doctor-grade nutraceuticals, deep discounts on labs, protocols, and follow-ups, as well as 24/7 direct access to your doctor, not just a 10-minute checkup that ends with another prescription. And here's the best part. As a Health Decoded listener, you'll get your first 3 months completely free when you sign up for an annual membership. That's on top of hundreds in savings already built into the program. This is your chance to take responsibility for your health and join a movement that's redefining what primary care should look like. Head on over to alessifunctionalhealth.com, click on our services tab, and go to Total Care. Learn more about this program and claim your exclusive podcast listener offer. Your health is your greatest asset. Let's protect it proactively.
Welcome back to another episode of Health Decoded, the show where we cut through the noise and decode what it actually takes to live better, longer. The goal is to empower you with knowledge and practical tools to take back control of your health from a system designed to keep you sick. And today, I've got an incredible guest joining me, Dr. Dan Cooper, the founder of Rad Health and the host of the Rad Health podcast. Dan and I are on the same mission, and that mission is to change the narrative of modern medicine. We're not here for Band-Aids. We're here for blueprints. And today we're talking about all things proactive health. Why is this country so sick? Who's profiting from us being so sick? And really how real healing begins from within. Little fun story. Dan was actually one of my professors in chiropractic school. So this guy is full of knowledge and full of great insight. And I'm really excited to have you on the show. Dan, thanks for joining us.
thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Well, why don't we start with this? Maybe tell a little bit about your story, kind of what led you in your life to get into health and alternative health, and become a chiropractor and that kind of thing.
My story is maybe not as direct as a lot of other people's with chiropractics. It seems like a lot of chiros have I got hurt and I went to chiro and I had this great, wonderful story. And so I took the professional path. Mine, I was really just a competitive kid. I always wanted an edge. And I always had a very strong, synergistic idea about where we exist in the world and natural systems and stuff like that. And I always, even when I was a little kid, it's weird. I remember being very young and not vibing with the allopathic model of pharmaceuticals. So I was like, man, I don't know how I knew these things, but I'm thinking like, man, they're altering a single pathway in physiology. I probably didn't know those words, but
Yeah, right.
It didn't seem like it's accounting for how things work together. And so it was just always my way of being more natural systems kind of guy. But I grew up in normal Western medicine household, so I didn't know what else to do. It was kind of tough actually from that standpoint where I didn't know of alternatives as a profession. I knew like I should be a doctor of some kind, but if I don't like the model the doctors work under, what do I do? And when I was around 25, I had found out about chiropractic and I learned, I'm on I don't even know if it's Google at that time. I'm 45 now, so whatever that was 20 years ago. and I found about the scope of practice for a chiropractic. I thought, oh damn, they could do pretty much all the stuff that I want to do. They can't do the things I don't want to do. So this is perfect. And that was kind of my find out about chiropractic story. But where I've gone with chiropractic since then, I've had a pretty heavy emphasis on functional medicine and functional neurology in most of my time as being a chiro. The functional medicine was really, you had a loved one who had diabetes, and so I went to a functional medicine course, and I thought, this really resonates with me. Finding just better testing, more complete testing, looking for patterns within the testing to determine how a system is functioning, and then use natural means to correct it. This sounds awesome. And so I really resonated with functional medicine. And I really thought, like, this is the way that healthcare needs to go. Like, the mainstream healthcare should be a functional medicine mainstream, not the allopathic mainstream, in my thoughts. Emergency medicine is one thing, but for health generation, I think it's the way to go. And the neurology stuff came from, I was in the Army for 8 years, and when I was in Iraq, I had a bunch of blast injuries. And then when I got home, it's funny, I got blast injuries, none of which actually knocked me out. They were like mild traumatic brain injury level concussive blasts. I didn't actually get knocked out, but come home and I got a freaking ATV accident and I woke up in the hospital. So a series of blast injuries, then a gnarly ATV accident in chiro school, actually. And I thought, man, there's a lot of deficits that are extremely noticeable, and I don't like this. So I pursued functional neurology as soon as I could keep a thought in my head for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the recovery was, it's tough after TBI. And so I jumped into Carrick's functional neurology program and loved it. And that's kind of what I do
that's
now.
awesome. I did a couple of those courses as well with Carrick Institute.
Okay.
Really good, man. While I was in school as well. And the functional neurology piece is so cool because it's like you can reset the connections, right, between the brain and the muscle, or the brain and the systems. It's just a matter of like, how are you getting the interference out of the way? And that's ultimately what we do with chiropractic, with functional medicine. The body, I always tell every patient, I'm like, your body is meant to heal. It's healing right now as we're talking. How do we get it out of its own way? How do we remove the interference, right? The junk, which is a lot of times like toxins, exposure to chemicals, mold, whatever is built up that's preventing your body from doing its job. And that's where functional medicine comes into play ultimately. So, you were a professor for a while as well, and now you're kind of shifting gears, I think, back into practice, right? And you've got your podcast rolling and stuff. So that's awesome, man. That's exciting. And I know you said your story, but there was a connection there to like a loved one, right? Had some kind of an illness or disease, and you felt some passion from that.
Right. Yeah. It was my mom, actually. She was type 2 diabetic. Didn't know it. Like, you could tell, but there was never a diagnosis. And I've noticed that with patients too along the way, that without something objective, it's been harder to convince somebody to do something. And when you have objective results in their face and says, this is what you have because of these numbers. Yeah. A lot of people jump on board better. So that's one of the things actually I've appreciated from the functional medicine side of things, is that there's a lot of testing. And when you have the testing, there's objective results that kind of convince people, damn, I do need to do something about this. And that's been helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's everything we do in our clinic as well, as we test, don't guess, right? So it's like, how many times I see somebody come in, they're like, yeah, I just started taking this supplement. I'm like, oh yeah, what made you want to, somebody told me it was good for me. It's like, maybe, right? Maybe like, maybe you're filling some gaps. Maybe you don't need it. Right. But if you don't test, you ultimately don't know. So, the body's meant, again, there's equilibrium that's meant to be had. And there are deficiencies that I think are just so predominant with like vitamin D, magnesium, that's based on, again, like environmental factors, right? We're not like genetically low on these things. It's the environment we live in is full of toxic burden, and it's just taking us out. So, that's a good segue, I think, into kind of the first thing I would really want to get into is like, why, in your opinion, do you think America is so sick, or why is this country at an all-time high in chronic disease, obesity, and all these things?
I think it's very multifaceted. I think I don't want to hit the low-hanging fruit first. I think the sedentary nature of our population is so destructive. And that's where every technology that comes out, it seems like it is to make our life easier. Well, easier means lazier and less healthy. So I think the sedentary nature of our lifestyle is one of the main factors. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit that I was avoiding first is the food system. The food system is so bereft with a toxic shitstorm that it's tough to deal with, and it's not even just the food system, but I mean, if you want to get into like, we're getting, Bill Gates wants to block out the sun by spraying chemicals in the sky. And,
Yeah.
and turns out they've been doing it for 65 years anyway. And
Right.
for weather modification. And, so we're exposed to so many things in our environment. I don't remember what the stat is or the number for how many new chemicals are allowed into our environment, whether it's water supply, food supply, whatever, every year. And it's already a staggering number to start with. So you're fighting an uphill battle, especially if you're not aware and you're just kind of rolling with the way normal goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, it's like the cat's out of the bag now, right? Nobody thinks that our country is like thriving. We know that we're all super unhealthy, and there's right. Like the outlier are the guys like us who, like, you take your shirt off at the beach and you have a 6-pack. People are like, whoa, look at that guy. It's like, dude, we all used to look like that, right? Like we should all look like that.
Outlier.
Yeah, exactly. It's unfortunate. And so, again, like the rise of all these chronic conditions, autoimmunity, things that like in the past, dude, even you go back 50 years, were non-existent, right? Like those were rare conditions. And now they are like they're the norm, right? And
very
so
prevalent, much the norm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, without getting super like woo-woo conspiracy, because like we could probably go there, but I do think there's a bit of an agenda, right? If not a lot of an agenda, and some of it can be seen in like the basic thing. And I talk about this all the time, like the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That entire thing came out of like a Kellogg's marketing ploy to get people to eat their cereal, right? Because this sugary cereal is supposed to somehow be your most important meal of the day. People used to not eat breakfast. Like breakfast was just like, you'd go until you got hungry midday, you'd have a nice like hearty meal, right? So again, just like
so the standard was an intermittent fast.
Exactly. Yeah. Or even like before that, like our ancestors would go days without eating until they killed something and ate it. Right. And so it's like,
and then they gorged for a while, and then they didn't for a while.
That metabolic flexibility piece that comes from that feast and famine component. I don't know if Dr. Dan Pompa talks about that all the time, right? The feast and famine. And I kind of live in that realm, and like there's days where I'll like be more active and I'm like, man, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat a little bit more today. And there's days where I'm just doing mental tasks, and I actually rather not eat because that frees up some capacity for me to have more focus. Clarity. Clarity. Exactly, man. So, you have something to say?
I did. Yeah. You mentioned, you kind of passed by vitamin D quickly, and I, not that I think you should have stopped at it, but I just shot a podcast recently about, and this is kind of dive into the fear mongering that goes along with just the normal advice that's given. And to be afraid of the sun is one of those things. And so I did a podcast, and I threw a little cute quip in there about, make America shirtless again.
That's awesome.
Because I'm that dude. I'm like that weird dude who's like around the neighborhood with no shirt on. And it's only
me too.
Because,
yeah.
Because people don't do it, but it shouldn't be weird. And I'm not doing it creepy. I'm just, I'm trying to create some vitamin D in my skin,
That's right.
And from the fear standpoint, we're always told that the sun is going to kill us and you're going to get skin cancer. But it's one of those things that is just a natural, free, available stimulus that reduces our chances of a host of other cancers. Yeah. And the only increase in cancer risk for skin is if you get burned, and typically burned repetitively. So if you mitigate your exposure such that you don't get burned, then it's actually a health benefiting exposure to be in the sun. So the advice to I've heard this before too. Somebody will, hey, do you have your SPF on today? Like it's like, do you have your socks on? I'm like, do you have your SPF? Jesus Christ. No, I don't have my SPF on. I'm going to go specifically not have it on, get a healthful glow, and produce vitamin D and be healthier for it. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's so good. And again, man, it's like the fear, right? The fear component, and who stands to profit behind that? Probably sunscreen companies, right? They just sell a ton of this stuff,
And like you had alluded to earlier, the sunscreen companies, who are the companies? And you have the pharmaceutical companies who also own at least the big food companies.
That's right.
And so they've got this cute little revolving door of make them sicker, get a drug to patch the sick. And, you got 6 side effects that go along with this drug. Cool. We have more drugs for that too. And it's just a money siphon out of the population.
It is a fantastic business model, right? Like, like future forever customer, right? Like they need your product because you got them sick on your other product, right? So it's man,
convince them that they need your product. They
Yeah.
need your product. You convince them that they need your product.
And I mean, you can take it a level deeper and say that it's indoctrinated very young, right? Into our kids is like kind of just like do what they tell you, go to get your wellness
Right.
checkup. And like, dude, my kids are 4 and they are like the healthiest little guys you ever seen in your life. 0 shots, 0. They've had antibiotics once in their life when it was like they had a RSV virus, right? And like at that point, the antibiotic doesn't do anything anyway, but nothing, bro. Like they don't take medicine. Like I give them honey and ginger and garlic when they have a little sniffle. Dude, they knock it out like that. I also, and I think their mom puts a little bit more on them with sunscreen. I don't put sunscreen on them. We just limit the exposure. I'm like, hey, take your shirt off. Like we're going to run around in the park for 15, 20 minutes. You build up that base where your body can tolerate it, right? And so it's like, even if they get a little red, the next day they're good. And I'm the same way. Yeah. And I actually like throwing this in here when we have the conversation about the sun and vitamin D and sunburn. There's a couple hacks, and people don't know this. When you wear sunglasses, and maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't. When you wear sunglasses, it's actually blocking your optic nerve from taking in that, like those UV rays. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to get burnt. So I don't wear sunglasses because then my eyes are actually pulling in those UV rays, right? They're accepting that. And my body knows to now produce the melanin to tan rather than burn. And then another cool little hack is there's an antioxidant called astaxanthin. Mm-hmm. If you take astaxanthin, it actually helps you tan better as well. And so I do those two things. Astaxanthin is just a great antioxidant for like daily anyway, like for free radical cleanup and all that kind of stuff. But those two things, dude, I'm out in the sun every single day, shirt off, running around, like, and I don't get sunburnt.
That's interesting because I had kind of forgotten about astaxanthin in that context, but I have in the past taken it when I knew that I couldn't limit my exposure as much as I wanted to. I was like, damn, I'm going to be out doing this. And I want something. So I actually took that. And also, I mean, you can find shade. You can create shade. That's what clothes are. Clothes are shade, right? A hat is shade.
Right.
And if you have to throw on something that you want to put on your skin because whatever, you can't put on the clothes, you're in the water, whatever it is. They have mineral sunblocks that are reflective instead of the chemical sunscreens that are carcinogenic. So you do have other options.
Yeah. The stuff that sits on the skin rather than soaks into the skin.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly probably why people, they don't like it as much because you kind of look all like pasty white, and but they have some that are tinted now, so it's not as ridiculous looking.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. My biggest thing is like I'll just limit the time, right? Like I'll plan like it's if you're gonna be out at the beach all day long, bring an umbrella, go sit under the umbrella every now and then and get like a little break. It's that prolonged hours and hours and hours where you're either gonna get burnt or something is gonna obviously occur there.
I did find a bunch of research on frequency of exposure as well when I was I was rabbit holing like I do on things, and regular intermittent or not regular moderate exposure is better than regular or intermittent moderate exposure. So it's like that. It's that building a base kind of concept. You get that erythemal dose, your body builds to it. Right. Another little dose, your body builds to it. Versus you get here, your body builds to it. It starts to drop again. Then you get whacked again with a higher intensity of sun. So it's that regular keep the Make America Shirtless Again. That concept is actually the healthier way to go than intermittent exposure.
Yeah. And it's the same with a lot of things. You don't just go into the gym and start squatting 500 pounds. You have to build up to that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You got to get in there and get some reps, get some fundamental stability. And then, yes, you can start adding in that natural adaptation response will occur. Our body functions in many ways with that. It's the same with chiropractic care too, right? First time someone gets like an adjustment, maybe they've never had one, their neck might be kind of sore or pain, but then the body starts to pick it up and you start to stabilize and obviously get results. So, I think that's the biggest thing is like, I think this just kind of popped in my head. People don't know what health looks like anymore because there's even those people out there that look jacked, they look, and they're spouting all this stuff, but then like on their blood work are unhealthy, right? Like if you were to run a panel on them, you'd be like, dude, you're about to have a heart attack. And I actually just knew a guy who was like that. And his coronary artery score was like, he was like 90% blockage and he's cut up. He's a bit older, but he's like, he looks like you'd be like, man, this guy takes care of himself. Right. So the internal is more important to me than I guess the external, but the external tends to be almost like a display of internal health too, right?
Right. It's what you see. And so since you can't see the inside, people just accept what they see on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's do this, man. Obviously we kind of touched on this and the they keeping us all in the sick realm. But it's like, again, it's a system designed to create what we call, like what you said, like the revolving door of patients just coming in. You've been told to listen to the doc, but then the doc spends 2 minutes with you and just says, "Here, take this medicine." Doesn't even really like tell you what's going on. They kind of just like give you something to take, right?
Also, unfortunately, they might not know because they haven't been given any sort of what creates health. Most of allopathic medical school is about how to suppress physiology for various reasons, to suppress symptoms or whatever the case may be.
Let's go there. Keep going.
Generate health. So do they have answers for them that they could give? Unless they've done outside education, they probably don't.
Yeah. And so, a great example is you go to an MD or a Western Med doc with an autoimmune condition. They put you on immune suppressing drugs.
Right.
Now, let me rephrase that, right? Your immune system is already suppressed and attacking itself. They want to suppress it more. And then those people get out of there and now they just are sick every day. They're getting these minor infections that like are taking them out, right? A little cold from their kid.
Because their immune system worked, but now they've shut off their immune system.
Exactly. And so it's like the opposite should be like, wait, how do we rebuild the immune system? How do we fix the problem? And that goes into like, what is the root cause, right? And we talk about that all the time. I think even that phrase now is getting watered down, like root cause medicine. But essentially, like the prime example I use, because I've seen this time and time and time again. I mean, I feel like I get a new patient for this every week. Some kind of autoimmune thing, whether it's like an eczema or an arthritis or psoriasis, right? Or even like full blown like Hashimoto's, the root cause of that. Okay. Like those things didn't just start, something triggered that. So then some docs might say, oh, the root cause was like a leaky gut or like some kind of permeability in the gut. But like, what was the root cause of that? Right. You got to keep going. Exactly. Yeah. What's your lifestyle? Chronic stress, like you're so fried, plus you're eating XYZ like fast food all the time. That's a root cause. Lifestyle. So, lifestyle medicine.
Have you ever messed around with SNP testing?
I have done a little bit, but I can't say I'm super deep into it.
So some people might say that's a root cause because SNP just stands for single nucleotide polymorphism. It just means a single, the ATGC, the little nucleotides on a gene, one is wrong. And so you have a slightly altered action of that gene. And so that's a susceptibility. But really, that's not the root cause. Susceptibility doesn't mean you have it. It means it's easier for you to get it. So it's still the lifestyle that is the root cause of the problem, even if there's a SNP involved. It just means if you know about that, you can account for it with whatever action it is that would account for that. I just wanted to mention that. I didn't know if you were into the SNP testing or not. Yeah, no,
I've read some good stuff on it. There's a cool book called Dirty Genes, Dr. Ben Lynch. Great book because he wrote it in a way that could take someone who's not a doctor like us, who has no idea about genetics and genetic code, and they could understand it. And it basically, super, super easy to read. But he explains like there's different types of SNPs that can they can predispose you to stuff. It's not 100%, right? It's not like you have this, you get this, but it's like you might be more predisposed to, right? Maybe cardiac things if you have like an NO3 SNP, right? Where your body's not producing that nitric oxide in the blood as much because nitric oxide dilates blood vessels and all that, right? And so knowing those things is really cool. And there are some good tests you can do. I'd say that's something I've dabbled in a bit. However, we lean more on like the comprehensive testing for hormones and gut, and that's a little bit more of like what we deal with. But it is something we help patients with. The biggest one I think I see is I do like to throw in like an MTHFR test a lot. If someone comes in with a lot of like chemical sensitivities or they've been exposed to mold and heavy metals and we're going to detox them, I'm like, I need to know how well your body detoxes. So let's see what the MTHF looks like. And then we're going to support that along the process too, because that's a big one. And that's super common. I have like a 75% allele to that. My kid's mom has like the 25%. So, they're already set up to be like 50% right-ish, like if that's like the way that works. So supporting that with the methylated vitamins.
Right, but luckily, easy to mitigate.
Very easy. Yeah.
You just got to know.
But again, there's the knowledge piece that like a lot of people don't know. And then their Western Med doc says, oh yeah, just go take a B vitamin and it's folic acid, which makes the methylating process worse because the folic acid doesn't bind properly and blocks it rather than opening it, And so there's like all these just missed things that's not understood. So again, the whole concept of this podcast, man, is to educate people so that they can make these decisions for themselves and ultimately like have, I call it the home doctor kit. We give every patient like a kind of a guide on this. Like, hey, if you're doing functional medicine or any kind of program with us, you're in control, right? You show up to your appointments, you make the decision to do this. I'm just going to guide you. I'm like the wise old wizard. You're the hero, right?
Yeah.
You're the guy who's attacking the monster. I'm just a little dude like, oh no, don't go that way. So, but like the home doctor kit is like, okay, like what does your blood work show you that you should have? And then like, are you taking your blood pressure regularly? Are you checking your pulse oximeter? Like these kind of things that you can just have in your home to make more educated decisions,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, again, it's, do you have, got a point on that?
Mentioned your kids being so healthy, and I have a 16-month-old right now. I guess she's almost 17 months. But for the last probably 15 years, I've had a really strong interest in fetal optimization. So the things that you could do preconception through gestation to optimize the ceiling for your kid's potential.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so unthought of in the general population that ceiling is inadvertently lowered. So they just don't have the capacity to hit a potential. How high could it be? It's not as high as it could be because of things that they've done along the way. And so it's one of the things that's just kind of like in my passion zone right now. One, because I have the kid, and
Yeah.
She's freaking awesome. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
Your kids are kicking ass. Like, damn,
Yeah.
I'm so impressed all the time, especially when I see her around other kids that are her age or even a little older. I'm like, man, you're doing great, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that passion gets bred. Like, dude, my kids are brilliant. Like, and it's part of that I will attribute to like, we were super dialed in on their like first foods, like for like probably the first year when they started eating solid food, it was like eggs with a lot more egg yolk than white. It was avocados, bone marrow. Like we were giving these little pastes that they would just like, dude, crush. And so it's like their brains are filled with these like healthy saturated fats that have just built it up,
And and choline, like the big best source of choline is those egg yolks. And if you don't know, like you said before, if you don't know, then you can't do anything about it.
Well, then people are giving them the little rice puffs that's got nothing in it. They're like, oh, he loves these rice puffs. I'm like, dude, that is cardboard. Like, it's like, but so that's a great point. And so I'll kind of share a little bit. And I don't think I've ever even like told this on the podcast, but I'm not with my kid's mom, but she had a miscarriage prior to the twins being born. And so the way that was handled really like it made me sick. The way it was handled by the OB in the hospital system. They said, oh, like, cause I knew a little bit about like MTHFR and how that can lead to, neural tube defects and miscarriage or even predispose. And so I asked the doc, I was like, hey, what about like running an MTHFR test? Like, would you guys do that? They were like, the answer was, we don't normally do that until there's been like a couple, like 2 or 3 miscarriages. And I was like, okay, so you're saying that she needs to go through the most traumatic thing she's ever experienced 2 more times before you're going to even test like a $50 test. Anyway, I took it into my hands. I was like, let's run this test outside. We ran it. She did have that, mutation in the gene that she was not methylating B vitamins. So we fully detoxed. We did a ton of detoxing. Then we got her on this almost like an abundant methylated B vitamin plus choline. Like the list of things that we were doing was like this long, but she was so optimized. She was so healthy going into that. Yeah. And then here I go. I have these, amazing twin boys. Like the twin thing was just a coincidence. Like that's just a statistic. Right. But anyway, like they even them being born like 8 weeks early, they were still so healthy, bro. Like the only reason they wouldn't let us leave the NICU was because they weren't 4 pounds yet. They were like under 4 pounds and the car seats only hold 4 pounds. But like, they were like, these kids are good to go. They're just tiny. I was like, all right. Like, and so since then it's just been like, again, like they're showing that health is from all the stuff that we did. We were proactive about it. We weren't. And then the whole like formula system in the hospital too. They were like, well, they're small. They need to be on this formula. I looked at it. I was like, oh, you mean this brown rice sugar? They should be eating this. Like, no, I'm cool. We're not going to do that.
Where did you have them?
We were living in Colorado at the time.
Oh, okay. Because I was here in Tampa. They've got a really good milk bank system.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we did we had some donor colostrum and then, stuff like that we were able to supplement. But we found a really good organic formula as well that comes from Germany of all places. Europe has way more restrictions. And now this maybe shifts us back towards that like food conversation, because look at like the number of chemicals in the food in this country that are allowed that are banned in other countries. They don't even consider it like something you would put in your body, like petroleum. It's in so many things.
Like just such a blatant slap in your face. Like, this population's a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want. It's frustrating.
It is, man. It is. And we saw, I think, again, like, let's get a little conspiracy here, but we saw a big example of that with like the COVID thing, right? Is like, let's see what we can get away with. Tell them all they need to wear masks, and now wear 2 masks. And that's going to make you more safe, right?
And then watch each other eat each other alive. That was weird. How, neighbors are telling on neighbors and it got real weird.
Yeah, it's like create division within, right? Within families and communities and stuff like that. And again,
implanted that mind virus as well as any other virus with that.
That's right. And ultimately for a goal. The goal is, political and money and all that on the backside of that. And maybe we'll cap that.
Control.
Yeah, control for sure, right? Like these people will do what we say. So let's segue a little bit. I'm loving this conversation, by the way. The whole model that you and I are trying to create and trying to educate people on is that like what they call healthcare, or like what the insurance company says your healthcare, right, is really sick care. They're managing a disease, or they're managing how sick you are, but what are they doing for like health, right? So like this might be a cool question, and it kind of just came to me, but if you had to say like what would your metrics of health be, right? Like we're both like functional docs, and we want to keep people as healthy as possible. What things do you focus on as opposed to what like the sick care model would focus on?
So that's a good question to hit me on the spot with no prep.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think it would be easiest probably for me to start with just physical metrics, and there would be capacity metrics. So it would be VO2 max. It would be, as long as you're ambulatory, it would be say a 400 meter sprint. What is your time? And you could even do some cardiovascular measures that are associated with it, like how long does it take you to come down from the effort, and some measures like that. So I think some capacity metrics like that would be really important. I think from markers, like blood markers, what? So what's coming to mind right now is things like endogenous antioxidant systems and how well they work. And so some of that could be dietary oriented. It could be lifestyle oriented. So it's one that encompasses a lot of different factors that come into effect. And when I say endogenous antioxidant systems and why I care about them, you had mentioned that dude who is like, he's all shredded and he's got no blood flow,
Yeah.
But 90% of the antioxidant activity that occurs in your body occurs via the endogenous antioxidant systems, not the antioxidants that you eat. So if I'm, eating whatever I eat for vitamin C, I'm eating kiwis and stuff, and I'm thinking I'm getting all these antioxidants. I mean, you are, but it only accounts for 10% of the activity of antioxidant activity that happens in your body. So as long as your glutathione system, your superoxide dismutase, your catalase, that is all being recycled and functioning well, then you have a good antioxidant activity happening in your body.
Yeah.
And if you don't, so much goes wrong. Just glutathione from a single standpoint, it's your master antioxidant, but it's also got its own detox pathway in your liver. So if your glutathione is not being produced well or recycled well, you're having trouble.
Yeah.
And so I think I would look at stuff like that on top of my performance metrics that I would use for.
I love the performance metrics and that you led with that, because most people, gosh, I wish I had the stat in front of me. It was like, I wanted to throw up, because it was like it was like a high number, like 75% of people will never like run or sprint again. Right. And I'm like, geez, man, I'm sprint training at least 3 days a week. But like, I think what you said was the VO2 max. Maybe I'd add on that like HRV, which is that variability of how quickly does my heart spike and then come back down and then maintain. And particularly like overnight, like sleep HRV is huge. How are we recovering and recycling? And then like REM sleep tracking. And then like the biggest one for me, bro, I think pretty much every chronic disease, cancer, like all these things are metabolic in nature. I think they all have a metabolic back to it. So like those factors, right? Like what is the cholesterol plus oxidation inflammation kind of combo, as well as like blood sugar balance. And
Yeah.
we focus a lot on like being like metabolically flexible. Like, oh, you ate a meal 2 hours ago and then you like are crashing now. Like you're not metabolically flexible. Your body is not prepared to go a time without, sugar coming into it. So probably an insulin pathway is messed up. The pancreas is probably struggling.
Yeah. I love the metabolic conversation. That was my start into functional medicine, was the diabetes. And so I love, it's funny when I say that, I used to say it to students too. I might've said it when I was in your class, that I love diabetes, but I don't like diabetes. I mean, I like it as a condition to treat because it is type 2 is totally lifestyle oriented. It's like, this is just a get rid of it because you want to, and you do the right stuff. It's not like something is wrong enough to need any other inputs other than your own choices. It's awesome. And the things we can do just behaviorally to increase insulin sensitivity, to decrease blood glucose in the moment. Like it's just so, you're so empowered to control that condition / get rid of completely that condition, provided there's no end tissue death.
Right.
But it's a full reversal. It can be a full reversal, provided you haven't already gone blind or lost a limb or, whatever the end stage is.
Yeah. You're not regrowing legs, but but we help people reverse type 2 diabetes all the time, man. Like going from like, again, like what's the reference range and where do they draw the line on that? Because you'll go into the doctor's office and you'll be like hemoglobin A1C of like a 5.1 and they're like, oh, you're good. It's like, no, dude, you're like about to like
You're
pop,
close.
you know what I mean? Yeah, you're right there. And that's the whole functional reference range conversation.
Right.
I have a graph in my office and it's like, okay, like if this is your reference range that you get from your MD, this is the functional reference range. You want to be in this category, because if you're bordering here high, bordering low, you're not necessarily healthy or optimal, right? And so it's just a matter of time something spills over.
Having that as your target to be optimal. I wish that were more of what people cared about, because as long as that's your target, then you always have something to work toward, which gives you motivation to work in the right direction continually.
That's right.
A lot of people, you see those patients all the time, they start feeling better and they're like,
That's
all
enough.
right, well,
Yeah.
it's enough. I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. But they're not actually healed yet. And the same thing is with people's goals. So like, well, I can do my daily tasks, but my daily tasks are so non-stressful or non-intensive that just because you can do your daily tasks doesn't mean you're healthy.
Yeah.
So have an optimized focus in people's minds would be a great, societal shift to throw into play.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because again, like they're not like, people aren't like kind of talked to like that. They're like, oh yeah, you're good. Like just keep doing your thing. And when it becomes a problem, come back and we'll get you some more meds. It's like,
right.
Like most people don't make a decision, like a major health decision, till something's gone wrong. I mean, that's the nature of like what we see in the chiropractic side of our business as well, is that like, it's not until a herniated disc that they come in. It's like, man, if you would have got ahead of this like 3 years ago, like we wouldn't even be having this conversation. You could have prevented all of this. So prevention, again, right? What is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or whatever they say. Like
you mentioned you sprint 3 times a week, and I'm glad to hear that. One of the things I'm into now, I'm 45 and I've got a kid. This kind of like the crew I roll with now is like this kind of like dad folk. And with aging, sprinting is one of those things. If you don't keep it up, if you don't keep ballistic capacity up in your tendons will get fragile and you won't be able to, and then your chances of ruptures go up.
Oh yeah.
And then you ever notice when you look at somebody moving around and somebody looks old versus somebody who looks youthful? Yeah. It's more about like their bounce and fluidity and control than it is their hair color and like, are they gray or they're not? It's more, are they lithe and peppy looking? And tendon health has a lot to do with that. So sprinting, that's one of the things. Whether you keep it in 3 times a week for the rest of your life or whatever, make sure it doesn't go lower than 1 time a week, Yeah.
Well, man, I still play men's lacrosse at a high level, right? I'm playing at a pretty competitive level. So I had taken some time off when I moved and got into starting my business and all this stuff. And I hadn't played for probably like 5 or 6 years after college. And then I was like, man, I want to get back into it. Second time back, I like ended up like pulling my hamstring, and it was like, okay, that's a little wake up. Like, I'm not just going to go from like when I was doing more so like lifting and stuff, like bodybuilding ish, to like back to this. So then now I've been training more functional again, and 100% what you just said, like that bounce, like I feel that bounce again. I'm actually like probably faster and more like dynamic than I was even in college. And I'm doing a lot of other things. I have more knowledge as to how to do that. Right. In college, I can't say I was like the healthiest. I was like, doing the basic college stuff, like eating crap because I was poor, but now I'm able to like get ahead of these things. And so, yeah, man, again, if you don't use it, you lose it.
And that's good to see. I mean, how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay. So not that old, but it is worth noting that at any age you can improve. I'll just stick on tendon health, but you can improve any health marker, but tendon health included. So maybe if you start at 90, you're not going to get to your 17-year-old self, but your 90-year-old self, your 91-year-old self can be better than your 90-year-old self. So we always have this healing capacity that can always happen, so that it's always worthwhile to try and do better.
Yeah. And that's awesome, because that just made me think of like the concept of like biological age versus like calendar age, right? Calendar age is we're just counting days and years, right? Biological age is like internally and like systems wise and on a cellular level, like what is my age showing? And so I'm probably like biologically like in my 20s, just because I'm on all, I'm doing all the right things. I move my body every single day. I push my body to a high level where then it has to recover. I sleep like I sleep like a bear, dude. Like I'm optimized my sleep. My room is like the sleep like chamber. I got the cooling bed mattress. I got all this stuff. So it's like, that, because to me, that's so vital. I can't do my job and perform if I'm not recovered. And so, it makes me more able to like help other people too, which is ultimately the goal.
Yeah. And, recovery is the essential piece. If you're talking about fitness, if you're talking about mental tasking, you're talking about anything where you're expending an energy toward a goal, that's all a request. Like fitness, like doing a workout is a request. The recovery is your body answering with the adaptation. And same thing with, neurological rehab when I'm doing concussion stuff. If you're doing concussion rehab, you're taxing neurons. So there needs to be a recovery period for them to then adapt and accept the stimulus you just put into it and create a capacity to deal with that. So not having a good recovery game, or thinking that's a superfluous, unnecessary piece of the pie, is a bad idea. So that's a good thing to impress on people, especially when they're getting into fitness. They're like, okay, I'm doing this thing and that's all I need to do. But you got to do the backside to recover and actually grow from it.
Yeah. And it's also the concept of like volume too, right? Like most people start working out and they tend to do too much, or a lot of people will do that. And I used to do that. I'd be training like 6 days a week, lifting, doing all this stuff. I'm like, why am I like not getting as good of results? And I'm sore all the time. And so then you drop down to like a 3-day a week, like split, maybe throw in some.
Superman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You feel great. And your body's actually healing more, and you're going to get better results from less. And so that's like efficient. Right. So yeah, I love that concept. Like volume is so important. And being an exercise science major in undergraduate, I definitely like had an idea of what that looks like. It's and
it's very individual too. So you have to be in tune with yourself enough or use metrics. So you're either in tune with yourself enough to know, am I recovered or am I not? But that's where a lot of these wearables come in. And like I had I think I used Polar's watch with all the biometrics on it. And don't worry, I left it on airplane mode, but
right.
Once I wanted to know how I was sleeping, I wanted to know some of these metrics for data purposes, but then I was able to understand how I felt at different data points. And so then I didn't need the watch anymore for the data, because I could actually intuitively know what my numbers were just by how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And again, I wear the Garmin and I love it because it tracks HRV, and I do wear it at night. And so again, like the Wi-Fi at night, probably not 100% the best, but like I do so many other good things that I'm almost like, it's worth it to me to know that kind of stuff, because I will tell when I'm overreaching, or like if I'm overtraining, because my HRV will start dropping and I'm like, damn, like this is off. Like what's going on? Oh, I actually do kind of feel shitty right now. I should take a little mental note of that and, try to dial it back this week. Do like maybe like a deload week where I'm not doing as much intensity, but maybe more like aerobic, right? Some jogs or runs or even walks, right, with the kids or something. So just knowing how to like fluctuate that depending. Yeah.
You may find that you're like, man, I didn't change my workouts at all. That's weird. But then you notice you were stressed for the last couple of days.
Yeah, definitely.
Emotionally stressed, and then it trashed your HRV. So it kind of proves to you that other factors in your life besides just the workouts affect these things just as much.
Yeah, that's right. And we kind of talk about like these 6 pillars where it's like fuel, movement, sleep, mind, body, or mind, spirit, and work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like those 6 things, and it's like taking mental inventory, right? And the super simple like scorecard we use is like rank yourself 1 to 10 on each of those, right?
Right.
And then where are you maybe doing the worst, where you need to improve that, right? It's like, dude, I'm dialed on my workouts, I'm dialed on my sleep, nutrition's good, but man, like mentally, like I'm pretty burnt right now with work. So let me kind of like maybe take pause or like change the pace a little bit there so that I can find more of like that equilibrium and everywhere else.
Yeah.
And again, it's objective, right? Scorecards, man. Like that's everything is test, don't guess. So, man, that's awesome. Let's real quick before we kind of wrap up here. I know we're going for a while, but I love the conversation. We're both in this functional medicine space. And so again, it's all about like what we call real healthcare. This is healthcare, not the sick care or disease care model.
Sure.
And so when you work with patients and you're doing like, what are you starting with? Are you starting with more of the, let's run some comprehensive blood work? Are you getting a symptom checklist? Like, how do you start that?
So mind you, I am just coming off of 8 years of teaching. So and I did practice most of that time on the side, but it was just small volume. So and actually funny enough, it was probably half functional medicine. So still small volume though. But what I would do is I would do a symptom questionnaire. So I'm actually like doing a questionnaire that identifies systems first. So I know where the highest priority testing goes. Mainly it's for efficiency and for cost. A lot of you just test everything all at once. It's, it can be pretty expensive. And so I want to dial into, biggest bang for the buck first. And that's generally how I go with it.
Nice. Yeah. Everything you just said is exactly what we do too. And I always tell patients that I'm like, hey, depending on what you want to look for and what your budget is, like we can look for, best bang for your buck. We run like a comprehensive panel that it's probably somewhere around like $400 or $500, or I'm like, we can look for everything and you're probably looking at like a couple grand. So it's like, what's your starting point? And then what do we need versus what would be nice? And I kind of like give them that option too. I'm like, hey, I need to see this gut panel. You have had diarrhea for the last 10 years, or I need to see, right? Like I need to see these things. Like you can't fall asleep, but then you're tired all day. I got to see your cortisol. So like, the non-negotiables, and then obviously the like, okay, it'd be nice to see an extra panel here. But yeah, man, we created a pretty cool, and you and I we should link up outside of this and chat too. We created a cool like functional medicine primary care program within our office too, to help kind of get people away from that model, which is like, man, if I had $1 for every patient that came in and was like, man, yeah, I went to my doc and they did blood work, I'm not really sure. Like they didn't tell you anything. It's like, man, like what is going on here? Like
I'd actually love to jam on that, because like I mentioned from the get-go with my impression of functional medicine is I want that to be what primary care is. So I would love to help.
That's right, man.
That for you and check out what you got going on.
Yeah, for sure. And again, man, it's like the concept is like using the functional medicine, the lifestyle medicine, which is very much like taking inventory on someone's life. Like, hey, you need to be going to bed before 2 a.m. in the morning. You got kids and like you're chronically stressed, right? Like that kind of stuff plays into it. But then ultimately, I want to get you so educated that like you run blood work for yourself, you read your own blood work, and then you can like ultimately like work on things, right? And know what that looks like. Like I teach every patient how to read their blood work, how to look at an x-ray and say, hey, like what's going on here? And they're like, oh yeah, that disc is pretty compressed. Whereas like most people have never seen an x-ray of their spine. So it's like,
it's actual appropriate patient education during your review of findings. That's spectacular.
Crazy, right? So crazy. Who would do such a thing? Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, we're definitely gonna connect on some things, and hopefully more conversations too, man. This was really good. Maybe get even a little bit more nitty gritty. But before we wrap up, tell people where they can maybe learn more about you, like online, podcast, and kind of follow along.
All right. So yeah, the podcast is it's new. It's launching this week actually. So the podcast is called Rad Health, RAD, and I'll get a whole video on what that actually means. So
Sure,
Rad Health podcast. It's spit out to every podcast host, so you can find it anywhere.
Cool.
Or on YouTube. Dr. Dan Cooper is my YouTube page, and I've got the video versions of them up there. The only other social media I actually use, I might branch out. I freaking hate social media, but I may have someone else branch out for me and use some other social medias. But currently, it is Dr. Dan Cooper on the old Instagram.
There you go. Awesome.
Dr. Dan Cooper too, not Doctor spelled out.
Cool. And this episode is probably going to launch like a little bit later, like maybe in like 4 or 5 weeks, because we got a few on the docket. So listeners, you'll probably have a few episodes of Doc's podcast to go listen to by then. So that'll be good to go check them out. But
yeah, the intent is weekly. So hopefully they'll have a bunch.
Yeah. Awesome, man. That's really good. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, or any kind of last things, insight words?
Dad advice? I mean, I'm not really. I mean, just to, to look at your life as something that you have actual control over. Life is not happening to you. Life is something that you create, and your experience of life is what you create. And so take ownership of that and put in the work. And sometimes that's internal work, but once you find out a path, chase that path like it's a lion running after you, because then you will have the life that you want faster than later.
That's phenomenal, man. I love that. Take those words to heart, everyone. And again, if you enjoy the show, please smash that subscribe button, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. That's the only way we grow this message. If you have any questions, you can send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. Go to alessifxhealth.com, learn about our functional medicine program, Alessi Total Care, as well as our chiropractic programs, how we help people stop living in the sick care model and start taking control of their health. And as always, remember that your health is in your hands.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at alessifunctionalhealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. That's ask@alessifxhealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.